Now, if you don't know what a fake spring is, I'm about to put you up on it. That's what's going on all across the country, where you have this temperature warm up unseasonably, and it's going to have everything in your garden looking real nice. You're going to want to go out, plant things, put your flowers out, put your tomatoes, your peppers out. Fake spring. But we're going to show you how to deal with this, because we got some temperatures that's going to drop in the next 5 to 6 days, where we're going to be down into the 20s here again in Georgia Zone 8A. But there's a weed in your garden that we've already talked about that we're going to put you up on, and we're going to let you see how we use that weed to build that antifreeze up in your plants so that they'll better survive these temperatures that are about to drop. Now, walking out into the garden, this is one of the things that gets my day going. Now, there's some negatives and positives to this whole thing. We got a lot of flowering going on. That means things are bolting. The temperatures are going up and down. Look at that, our hashiko onions are about to blossom. That's going to be our bee magnets. So if you got these hashiko onions in your garden, they're going to bring those bumblebees in, and you're going to have pollinators all over the place. But in the meantime, we're bolting. Now, remember, we were talking about our cabbage, right? No insect pressure. Still no insect pressure. That's 2 weeks of up into the 80s. You see that down there with all the insect bites on it? That's what the roly-polies are doing. So what I'm doing is I'm feeding the roly-polies. See that right there? But you don't see it on the plants. All of the garden is starting to green up. Had even one of my cabbages split right there. Even though that cabbage is split and it's putting off that sulfur smell, no insect pressure. In the last 2 weeks, the garden is just greening up. There again, some more of our hashiko onions. And look how beautiful that green is. That chlorophyll is coming in real strong. That's because we've built up the sap in these leaves, and that's creating the auxins that makes those unpalatable for insects. Things like aphids and whiteflies, they don't care for this stuff if it has a high sugar content. The aphids and whiteflies like simple sugars. So as you build up the Brix, that creates complex sugars. They can't digest it. Not only does it not taste good to the insects, it's actually toxic. That's why you want to build up those Brix levels. And we got our refractometer to help us know that what we're doing on our Brix levels. So we'll even come over here. This is another one of our collards. She's going to seed, and we're just going to let that happen. Look how beautiful that is. That's going to bring in the pollinators. That's what's going to draw in the ladybugs. So sometimes you have to let these things happen, and they'll take care of themselves. The ladybugs are going to take care of any aphids. Here's something that we have right here. This is Henbit. That's telling me that we have some pretty good nutrients in here. That Henbit is a dynamic accumulator. And this is the secret to it all, the Henbit. Lamium and amplexicaule, that's what we have right here. This is Henbit. Now this little plant here is a weed. People see it as a nuisance in their garden. But I'm going to show you guys how to use this to create a super tonic. We're going to have a temperature drop in a few days. Back down to the 20s here in Georgia Zone 8A. So we're going to need that chlorophyll and that sap to build up in our leaves in order to withstand that cold. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to call that, we're building up the antifreeze in our garden. Now, we showed our fava beans in our last video when we did our fake spring. And as we did that video, I had just reseeded. So you can see my seedlings coming up right there. But overall, they have done extremely well in the last 2 weeks with that warm up. So now we'll even go over here to our garlic bed. And you remember how this was going the last time we were out here. We had that Henbit growing all over in our garlic bed. So we're going to be harvesting this Henbit. Now, if you recall, we talked about the center of our garlics and how we know that they're taking up the nutrients in this bed. And we also use our Henbit as an indicator as to what the pH of the soil is. Now, growing up in this Henbit also, we have some chickweed. Now, chickweed is something we're going to be exploring a little later on, and we're going to show you how to use that chickweed also to make another FPJ. But today, it's all about the Henbit. For most people, these are just weeds. But if you look close, these are nutrient powerhouses. They're dynamic accumulators. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to show you what a week of fermentation of this Henbit plant can do for our garden. Now, what I'm going to show you is what the finished product looks like. And then we're going to show you how to make this. Real simple. We have our breathable top on here, just simply a little paper towel with some masking tape around it. That's all that is. See all that on the bottom? That's come off through osmotic pressure. And what it's done is basically use that brown sugar to extract all the nutrients out of this henbit. And there it is at the bottom of that jar now. You see that liquid? Some things that we're gonna need: cheesecloth, a mason jar, and what I like to use is a Turbinado sugar. Doesn't have to be this particular brand. I found this at the Dollar Tree, Turbinado sugar. Got my little chopping pad. And we have our scale to weigh up our equal parts of our Turbinado sugar and our henbit. I guess we can do this like this. We'll let some of it go down in there, and then we'll come back and we'll run our cheesecloth through it. Now this stuff feels like syrup. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put on some gloves here, and then we're gonna squeeze the rest of that juice out of there. Now we're gonna take our cheesecloth right here, and we're gonna pour the rest of this on our cheesecloth. You look at all of this that we have left over. Now this can go into the compost pile. That's what it does. That sugar's extracted all of the juices out of that plant through osmosis. And then that's what you're left with. So we'll take this, and it's like a syrup. You can feel that sticky all over you. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pour this inside of here now. And then we're gonna take our cheesecloth, and then we're gonna pour it back inside of our small mason jar. Now I'm going to show you how we harvest this. Now you can see Around this pot here, we have Henbit growing all the way around it. That's telling you that this soil is nutrient dense. And what you want is that Henbit early in the morning as that morning dew is still sitting on it, because that's where all of our microorganisms are going to be at. And we want that because they're going to be the ones to culture this fermentation that we're going to do. So we're going to come down here and we're going to harvest this Henbit. We want to fill this bowl up because that's going to be how we're able to get that jar over there. Once I fill this bowl up, chop it up real fine, I know that's going to be enough of the Henbit in here to make a full glass of that FPJ. Just grab it like this here, throw it in the pot. We're going to take all of this off. And then we're going to chop it up even finer, because the more bruised that they are, the easier it is for that osmotic pressure to pull the nutrients out of this. So we want this cut up as best as we can. See, we want this stuff bruised up as much as we can. And again, you don't want to rinse this because you want all those native microorganisms that are on this plant early in the morning to be a part of that fermentation process. Now the nutrients are going to be on the tips of these plants early in the morning, and that's why we want to harvest early in the morning while you still have that dew on the plants. Now that potassium in here, that's what causes the nutrients to flow up and down the plant. And that's what I call the antifreeze, that builds up that sap. And that magnesium, that's what I call the engine, and that keeps that chlorophyll going. And then you have the iron in there, which carries the oxygen, and that helps the plant breathe when that cool weather comes in and the frost gets into the tips. And then that nitrogen, that's what I call the repair kit. So as those plant cells may rupture a little bit because of that cold frost, the nitrogen comes in and helps repair that. So we want to bruise this stuff up as much as we can, because that's what's going to allow this brown sugar through osmotic pressure to pull that juice out of these stems. I think we got about enough there, so we're going to take this over to our cutting board and we're going to dice it up even more. You see how fine that is? That's what we want. We want that chopped up pretty good like that. So now put our scale right here. And then we're going to take our little basket here and we're going to pour our Henbit into it, because we need to get a tare weight. We're going to put our scale on grams. So our scale is zeroed out. We're going to see how much our bowl weighs. About 440 grams. We're going to tare it out. That's 0. And then we'll start to pour in our Henbit. So we're going to need 304 grams of sugar. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this back here. Remember, original weight 440 grams. I'm going to zero that out again. Now we're going to take our Turbinado sugar So we're gonna need 304 grams of sugar. It's close enough. Now with our Turbinado sugar, we wanna make sure that we save some for the end because we wanna top off our FPJ and have a coating of our brown sugar on the top. And that keeps any oxygen from getting into it and any bad bacteria. So we're gonna throw our gloves back on here, even though they're nasty, but it's gonna be a lot better than putting our hands in this because it's gonna get really sticky. All right, you see how sticky that is? And we're just gonna start mixing this up, and we wanna mix this up really good. We don't need the scale right now, so we'll take the scale, move it to the side. We want the brown sugar mixed in very well with our Henbit. You're gonna start seeing that liquid starting to form. It's gonna start pulling that juice out of there. You want that as evenly distributed as you possibly can. So you wanna make sure that you get all of those crystals, that brown sugar mixed in with it. I'm squeezing it at the same time I'm pressing it down at the bottom to pull those sugars out. Because what we're gonna do is this gonna create that osmotic pressure that's needed. See how wet my hands are? All that comes from the juice that's in there. As the sugars in this Henbit starts to mix together, the microbes are going to start feeding on that sugar. And that's going to be like a starter culture. We're just going to drop a little bit on that. And what that does is that introduces the microorganisms that's in our already fermented mix into our new mix. You see now, if I lift up the bottom of this, you see there's no sugar down there. All that sugar's mixed in. That's going to turn into like a real dark green liquid, just like what's in that jar right there. And then we'll take this and we'll just start packing it in there. Pack that down. We're going to put a top coating of the sugar on it. You want all of that covered. You don't want anything left open down there. Then I'll take my hand down there. And then how we do this is we do 1 tablespoon per gallon of dechlorinated water, dechlorinated and dechloramined. And if you keep watching the channel, I'm going to show you how we make our own ascorbic acid, vitamin C powder, to remove the chlorine and the chloramine out of our tap water. And we can use that to feed our garden. And we want a breathable cap. All this is some paper towel. I got some masking tape around it. Gonna slide that on there. See how that just pops on there? Don't have to be sealed. You want this to be able to breathe. And you want to put this in a cool, dark place, just in a cabinet or under a table, anywhere. And then I like to just drape like a little t-shirt over it. And in a week's time, you're gonna have some of the best pre-emergence fertilizer for your garden. So the last thing that we want to do to our Henbit FPJ is we want to verify that the fermentation took place. And these are the tools that you're going to need. When I tell you about my refractometer, as we use this on our plants, then we're going to be able to test the leaves with our refractometer. That's going to tell us how our sugar content is looking. If it's not a 4.5 or lower, that means we have to toss it out. So let's check this out. We're going to power up our pH pen here. Now what I'm going to do is go over here to this little bucket. What's it called? This has wood ash in it. So this should be very alkaline. Is that number climbing? When I do my charcoal burns, this is the water that's rinsed off of the residue before I start the biochar process. 9.2, this is super alkaline. We'll come back over here and we're gonna rinse this off. Now our FPJ, we're gonna just let it speak for itself. So we've hit our target market and then some. The minimum that you want this to be, your FPJ, is a 4.5. And we landed it right around a 4.1, so that is extremely acidic. So what we're gonna do is, this is some distilled water here. And we got a 1/2 gallon container. And this is why this pH meter matters so much. You cannot do these fermentations without being able to document what you're doing, because you will destroy your plants or you will create something that you really don't want to create. It should be a tablespoon of our FPJ per gallon, but since we have a 1/2 gallon sprayer here, we're going to use 1 teaspoon. One teaspoon, that's how powerful this stuff is. And then we're just going to fill this up with our distilled water. That's perfect. And then we'll put our spray cap back on here. Seal that back up. We're going to shake this up. And then we're going to open it back up. And we're going to test the pH of it with that 1 teaspoon. Now you see how that 1 teaspoon, and this stuff is still super acidic. So that's still too low to spray on any of our plants. We need that to be anywhere from a 5.5 to a 6.2. This stuff is super potent. Remember, we got a 4.1 on here. So we have to be able to use our distilled water, which has a pH of an average about a 7. Matter of fact, let's just test the pH in this to see what the pH is. So our distilled water is right about a 7. So we have a 7 on our distilled water, and we have a 4.1 on our FPJ, our Henbit FPJ. This is a 1/2 gallon sprayer here, available on growingoutthebox.com. Now we're gonna start off small and move up in increments. Now I'm finna show you just how powerful this stuff is. That's a 1/4 teaspoon. I'm just gonna take a drop of that. So just a drop. That's all it was, 1 drop. And we're gonna work our way up, because what we don't wanna do is put this stuff on there and it be too strong. So we're gonna work our way up. Shake it around a little bit. Take the top back off it. And then we're gonna test the pH again. Wipe our probe off. Now remember, our target is a 5.5 to a 6.2. That's 1 drop. Isn't that amazing? 1 drop. That's how powerful this thing is. 5.5 to a 6.2. Now if we land right here, we're gonna be perfect. Moving back and forth. That's perfect. 5.7, 5.8. 1 drop. That's pretty powerful. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pump our sprayer up. and we're going to do a foliar feed on all our plants. That's going to cause them to green up. You're going to see that chlorophyll come in. Just want that fine mist on it. I have 6,400 square feet in my garden area. This one bottle will cover the whole garden. When I say a little goes a long way, that's an understatement. This is what we're using. This is Henbit. This plant here will be out here and it'll grow well all the way down 5 degrees. So we've basically harnessed the energy out of this Henbit and we've put it in a bottle and we're sharing it with the rest of our garden.